Hey there, Beaks. I figured today we can do an update on the queens that I released last time, or that I introduced into those two nukes. Talk about those for a quick second. I've also got another hive over here that it was a swarm that didn't fare too well. They've got a great queen, but they don't look good. I'm going to explain that a little bit when I show you a little bit on that hive. Let me tell you what's going on here with this one. This was a swarm that I picked up, April, May. I'll double check the date on that. But these bees didn't look too good when I picked them up. They were sitting in a gutter, hot sun. They just looked weak. And I honestly didn't think they were going to make it this long. But I ended up housing them in a little 5-frame nuke here. Currently only has 4 frames in it. But we've got our queen right here. She's a nice golden queen. Now, these bees basically superseded their queen right away, the queen that was originally in this swarm. They'd started out pretty good. They had a pretty good pattern to begin with. And then there was some time lapse, and they actually failed to produce a queen the first time. So I gave them a frame with some young larvae and eggs on it to kind of give them a boost. That time they were successful in raising this queen here, and she doesn't look too bad. She's pretty well mated. When I look at the cells in here, she's laying in just about every cell. But there's a problem in here, and if I can get these bees to move. You'll notice we have a very spotty brood pattern. We've filled in a little bit. It's actually getting a little bit better now, but for a while it's been really poor. It was worse than this. It pretty much looked about like this everywhere. When I look in these cells, all these bees are different ages. It's not consistent, you know. Our queen will start somewhere up here in the middle and she'll spiral out. And so you'll have older larvae in here, and usually some younger larvae towards the outside. And what's happened here is, because there was a big lapse between the two queens, the population in this hive got old. And when you end up with an older population and no young bees to take care of the current population, they struggle. What happens is the queen starts laying, there's bees to cover the frame, but you don't have enough nurse bees to produce royal jelly that first few days. And so they spread themselves pretty sparse, and then they start to focus in on specific larvae and start raising those larvae versus everybody. And as they do that, some of the larvae end up dying. They clean it out, the queen comes back in and lays, and then you start to get this spotty pattern, and it doesn't stay consistent. You know, there's no disease in this hive. They all look healthy. The larvae that they are picking to raise look healthy. You can always tell the ones they're not, because they start to die off pretty quick. But this is actually a little bit better. It's been a few weeks since I looked at this last, and the population's actually come up just a little bit in this hive. So they're starting to gain a little bit of ground. But the way this hive sits right now, this is a hive that wouldn't make it through the winter without a lot of help. And at this point, I'm not going to invest resources into a hive like this to get them through winter. So I'll end up taking these and combine them. I'll probably show you that later on in another video, but I'll combine these with another hive. I've got another one that's only a few frames that we'll look at real quick. They've got a great queen in there now, but I'll probably combine this and let this kind of boost their workforce a little bit, and we'll get them through the winter. But that kind of shows you, this is what happens, when you get a new package. And you're not on top of it when you hive them and the queen fails and you've got to reintroduce a new queen. These bees have fat cells called vitellogenin, and when they stop producing royal jelly, those fat cells shrink. And if all of a sudden they have to produce royal jelly again, it doesn't come back the same. It ends up being a weak colony. The best thing to do when you start to find a colony like this, if you have the resources, is pull from another hive, give them hatching brood, and give them that quick boost so that they have a diverse age group within the hive. So you have forage bees, cleaning bees, nurse bees, and that'll help out quite a bit. And I could have done that with this one, but being the weak state they were in when I first picked them up, I wasn't going to invest too much into them just for them to fail anyway. But I figured I'd keep it going so that we could kind of show the process on this a little bit. But let me turn this frame around. So you can see just how poor that pattern is. You know, it's spotty, real spotty. But we've got larvae in here, larvae here. These are all about the same age. The pattern's starting to pick up a little bit, but the hive's just not viable at this point. They're only on 2 frames, maybe a frame and a half actually. So we'll combine them. We'll get them set up with another hive, another group where we can get them through the winter, and the queen that's in here will probably end up going into making swarm lure for next year. So no biggie. Now let's go over and check on the other queens that we introduced. Alright, just real quick, you'll notice only one of the nukes is sitting here. I came back 2 days after I introduced the queens into these nukes, and earlier that day I was also doing an inspection on another hive, and this other hive failed to raise a queen, and it hadn't been too long, so I figured what the heck. I took the queen out of it, I introduced it to this other hive, which I'll show you in a sec, and I took the frames that were in this nuke and put them back into the hive that I originally pulled them from. Everything went well, but we'll go ahead and take a look and check this other queen out. Let's get in here and take a look. I've been putting some nectar away in there, building a little bit of new wax. That's good. I like to see that. So I've got eggs. I can see eggs right down here in the bottom of this frame. Down in this area right here. So I know that this new queen's laying. And it looks like every cell, so that's good. That's what I want to see. And same with this other side. Same way. Go ahead and see if we can find her, since this isn't a full hive. There she is. You see her blue dot? Nice dark queen. Nice larvae in there. The cells are all filled, either larvae or eggs. Great. Exactly what we want to see. So we're going to go ahead and button these up. I did notice there's not a lot of pollen in here. We are in a little bit of a pollen dearth, There's some pollen that's been coming in early in the morning, not so much in the afternoon and evening. So what I'm going to do is I'll probably put a little bit of pollen substitute on these guys, and I may even feed them a little bit to really kick off this brood rearing. These guys are going to be a nuke that we're going to overwinter, so we need to get them building and going, and with what they've got in here right now, they'll be ready for another nuke box in just a couple weeks, so we're looking good. Let's go over and check out this other one. Alright, let me give you a quick rundown on this hive. This hive was a swarm capture, and initially the swarm that was in here filled this whole box. And we got it home, and when I came out the next day, the queen and 2/3 of the bee population had up and left. They didn't stay. First time I've actually had even a partial swarm leave. But they left some frames of bees, and I went ahead and took a frame of eggs from another hive and I introduced it to this hive. And there's not a large population left. We've got a little over 2 frames of bees, possibly. Not a lot. And so far they've been pretty good. They attempted to raise a queen and they didn't succeed. And the brood that they had was about ready to hatch when I was going through it again, so I decided to take the queen that I'd put in that other nuke and it went into here. And they were eager to accept her. I didn't even have to wait for an introduction. Here she is right here. You can see her walking around. She's laying. But you'll notice we've got the same problem that I just showed you earlier on that other hive. We don't have a good field force in here. They are lacking food. There is almost zero pollen in any of these frames. So they're struggling to get a lot of this brood off the ground. So I'm probably going to start supplement feeding them. We'll get some sugar syrup on them and we'll get some pollen sub on them. But she looks good. There's eggs down in the cells. I've got larvae being raised. But the force of these bees is pretty small. So like I was saying earlier, I'm going to take that other hive that's struggling, I'm going to combine it with this one. And that'll help get these guys off the ground into a better start. I may end up putting them in a nuke box as well, because they definitely don't need this much space. They're going to be a little bit slow to get going. So next time I'll show you how we do a combine. Got someone a little upset here. I want to get stung on the face.